Spring Television. Ours it is.
Good evening and welcome to Spring Global and Western Spring Television. Now the headlines. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, former President Obasanjo, others attend ex-ICJ Judge Bola Ajibola's funeral service. Gunman kills at least 5 people in U.S. state of Kentucky in the country's latest mass shooting. At least 4 people killed as explosion rocks Pakistani city of Quetta. My name is Tunde Idowu. We begin in Nigeria, where Vice President Yemi Osinbajo attended the funeral service of former judge of the International Court of Justice, Hague, Netherlands, Prince Bola Ajibola in Abeokuta, Ogun State. Ajibola, who was also Attorney General of Nigeria between 1985 and 1991, died at age 89 years. Others who attended the funeral were former President Olusegun Obasanjo and former Ogun State Governor Olusegun Oshaba, amongst other dignitaries. The respected legal icon who founded Christian University Abeokuta passed away in the early hours of yesterday after a protracted illness. In the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has praised the bravery, perseverance, and political imagination shown by the leaders who shaped Northern Ireland's peace deal. The 1998 Good Friday Agreement ended Northern Ireland's decade-long violent conflict known as the Troubles. But on its 25th anniversary, the Prime Minister has called on stubborn politicians to get on with the business of governance. To mark the milestone date, Mr. Sunak will welcome U.S. President Joe Biden to Belfast tomorrow evening. Praising the Good Friday Agreement, Mr. Sunak said it was born of partnership between the British and Irish governments. Meanwhile, NHS Confederation Chief Executive Matthew Taylor has called on the UK government and Junior Doctors Union to call on Conciliation Service, ACAS, for help with talks ahead of extremely worried strikes this week. The NHS chief made the call in an interview stating that potentially up to 350,000 appointments and operations could be cancelled due to the strike. Mr. Taylor said the government and unions needed to call in independent public body ACAS to help advance talks. Junior doctors in England are set to stage a 4-day strike as from tomorrow. While the British Medical Association wants a 35% pay rise, the UK Health Secretary Steve Barclay on Saturday said the demand was unrealistic.
Not only is the action longer, it's 4 days, but it's sandwiched between the Easter bank holiday weekend and another weekend. It's a time when many people will have consultants on a booked holiday. We have Ramadan, we have Passover as well. So this, in a sense, is a perfect storm in terms of the capacity of the health service. So we're hearing potential now of 350,000 cancelled appointments and operations, and that will make a huge impact on our capacity to recover services. See, what the health service is always trying to do is to achieve 2 things: to meet the demand which presents itself at all points of the health service, GP surgeries, A&E or whatever, at the same time as making inroads into those waiting lists that are built up before COVID and of course got much, much longer during the COVID period. And it's tough to meet that demand and make inroads into the backlog at the best of times. It's impossible to do it.
And to the Russia-Ukraine war, Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will meet his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in Beijing this week to discuss trade and the war in Ukraine. Brazil Foreign Minister Mauro Vieira made this known, noting that Mr. Lula will push his proposal for mediated talks to end the war in Ukraine. The Brazilian leader is looking to position Brazil as a mediator, as it did in 2010 during the nuclear discussions between Iran and the United States. However, his diplomatic stock took a hit last year when he came under fire for claiming that Zelensky was as responsible for the war as his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Mr. Lula is expected to arrive in China on Tuesday and meet Mr. Xi on Friday. In the meantime, Ukraine's First Deputy Foreign Minister, Emini Zapova, has arrived in India for a 4-day visit, the first by a Ukrainian government minister since Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in February last year. Ms. Zapova is expected to hold talks with officials from India's Ministry of External Affairs, including Meenakshi, the Minister of State for External Affairs and Culture. Ms. Zaporova is expected to meet with delegates from the Ministry of External Affairs to discuss the current situation in Ukraine and global issues of mutual interest. India's Hindu newspaper reported that Ms. Zaporova will call on India to send a strong message for peace to Russian President Vladimir Putin, who is expected to visit India in July for a Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit.
Existence of my country. Within our history of 1,500 years, Ukraine never attacked any other country like your country. We never had this imperialistic and chauvinistic attitudes towards our neighbors. So I think for us it's crucial that we are the victim of the war, of unprovoked war, of the neo-colonial war. So we also feel that we have this arbitrary by promoting these values of justice, of peace, as your Prime Minister in Samarkand said, that it's not an era of war. I mean, we do support this purely and fully, but unfortunately we have aggressive countries who question the existence of other countries, and then the question of India's involvement as a leader in the global south, as a G20 presidency. I think that we hope that India would be involved and engaged into global issues and challenges, economic challenges, energy challenges, nuclear challenges to a greater extent, because the Ukrainian issue is a litmus paper today.
In another development, the president of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, has met with Russia's defense minister seeking guarantees that Moscow will defend his country if attacked. The state-owned Belta news agency reported the meeting this morning, disclosing that the meeting with the defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, took place in the Belarusian capital, Minsk. Mr. Lukashenko was cited as saying that he had previously discussed the matter with Russian President Vladimir Putin, who he said had agreed that such security guarantees were necessary and needed to be formalized. Belarus, which currently hosts a contingent of Russian forces, has offered assistance to Moscow during its military campaign in Ukraine, which Russia calls a special military operation. Staying with the war, a Moscow-backed official says he visited Bakhmut, suggesting that Russia's forces have made significant gains there. Denis Pushilin, the Russia-installed head of the Donetsk region, posted a video of himself on Telegram in the heavily destroyed city. Mr. Pushilin, using the Soviet-era name for Bakhmut, said Artemovsk was being liberated by Wagnerites. Destroyed buildings and ruins could be seen in the background behind Pushilin, who wore a camouflage helmet. This comes as the commander of the Ukrainian ground forces said Russian troops have switched to scorched earth tactics in the war. Colonel General Alexander Syrsky revealed that Moscow forces had switched to tactics used in Syria as it destroyed buildings and positions with airstrikes and artillery fire. The U.S. Department of Defense says an interagency effort is assessing the impact that leaked intelligence documents could have on the U.S. national security and its allies and partners. In a statement, the department said it will continue to review and assess the validity of the photographed documents that are circulating on social media sites and appears to contain sensitive and highly classified material. Classified documents with details ranging from Ukraine's air defense to Israel's Mossad spy agency have officials scrambling to identify the leaked source. Some experts say it could be an American, as many of the documents were only in U.S. hands. Moving on, at least 5 people have been killed in a mass shooting in Louisville, Kentucky. The Louisville Metro Police Department confirmed the incident this morning, revealing that the suspected shooter was also found dead. LMPD Deputy Chief Paul Humphrey disclosed that the shooter was confirmed to be dead on the scene, but the circumstances around his death is yet to be ascertained. Video from the scene showed officers and ambulances in the street, and police confirmed reports of an active aggressor on the site.
.333 East Main Street at the Old National Bank. Shortly after, officers arrived on scene with Louisville Metro Fire and EMS, where they encountered active gunshots still being fired inside the location at that time. The shooter was confirmed to be dead on the scene. We do not know exactly the circumstances of his death at this time. 5 people have been confirmed to have been killed inside. At least 6 were transported to University of Louisville Hospital, including 1 officer with various injuries. We are unable to confirm the status of those who have been transported at this time. I will reiterate that this is an ongoing investigation. This information is preliminary, and it will be updated shortly. We ask that the public remain away from the scene. It will be an ongoing scene that will take a long time to investigate, but there is no active danger known to the public at this time.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden has indicated he plans to run for re-election in 2024, but was not prepared to announce it yet. Mr. Biden gave the hints in an interview with NBC's Today's Show before the White House Easter egg roll. Mr. Biden said that he intends to be the Democratic candidate in 2024, but was not prepared to make a formal announcement yet. Both Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris have said they will run together. It was gathered that top White House advisors are set to make final decisions on launching Biden's re-election campaign.
Taking part in the Easter egg rolls planning on after 2024?
Well, I plan on at least 3 or 4 more Easter egg rolls.
At least 3 or 4 more?
Maybe 5.
Maybe 5?
maybe 6. What the hell?
Are you saying that you would be taking part in our upcoming election in 2024?
Well, I'll either be rolling an egg or being the guy who's pushing them out.
Come on, help a brother out. Make some news for me.
I plan on running now, but we're not prepared to announce it yet.
All right.
You're watching Spring Global on Western Spring Television. We'll be right back after this break.
Jeremiah Oyeni Obafemi on March 6, 1905. Obafemi Awolowo was a prime architect of Nigeria's independence and most consummate advocate of free education and social welfare in Africa's most populous nation. Erudite politician, thinker, and philosopher, Awo was fondly addressed by associates and political colleagues, brought his unique attributes to bear on governance in the defunct Western region. He administered as leader of government business and the premier between 1955 and 1958. Obafemi Awolowo's premiership witnessed pioneering in multi-sectoral policy initiatives and execution. The Western region under his administration paraded several enviable records. First television station in Africa, first real estate in Nigeria, first high-rise building in Nigeria, first modern sports stadium in Nigeria, first agricultural settlement in Nigeria, first modern civil service secretariat in Nigeria, and first industrial estate in Nigeria. His face is on 100 Naira denomination as a mark of honor for his distinguished services to his country. Western Spring Television identifies Obafemi Awolowo as a major character in history.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. In Asia, at least 4 people have been killed and 6 injured in a bombing targeting a police vehicle in the southwestern Pakistani city of Quetta. Senior police official Shafqat Shima confirmed the incident to newsmen, noting that so far 4 deaths have been confirmed. As of press time, no group is yet to claim responsibility of this morning's attack. In the meantime, China has kicked off a 3rd day of live fire drills near Taiwan in response to Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's recent trip to the United States. According to the Chinese military, fighter jets carried out simulated strikes near the self-governed island during the exercises, which also included the Shandong aircraft carrier. This report examines the tension in the strait as the Taiwanese military puts its armed forces on high alert amidst the drill.
China said it was simulating sealing off Taiwan in a 3rd day of drills as it prepared to use an aircraft carrier to launch jets towards the island. China announced the 3 days of drills on Saturday after Taiwan's president Tsai Ing-wen returned to Taipei following a meeting in Los Angeles with U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Taiwan's Defense Ministry published a map on Monday of the previous 24 hours of Chinese Air Force activities, showing 4 carrier-based Chinese J-15 fighters operating over the Pacific Ocean to Taiwan's east. Democratically governed Taiwan is viewed by China as its own territory and has never renounced the use of force to bring the island under Beijing's control. Taiwan's government strongly disputes China's claims and has denounced the drills. Chinese state television said aircraft including nuclear-capable H-6 bombers armed with live missiles and warships staged drills to form a multi-directional island-encompassing blockade situation. The 3-day operation, dubbed Joint Sword, is intended to rehearse an encirclement of Taiwan, which Beijing claims as its territory and has threatened to take by force if necessary. The Eastern Theater Command of the People's Liberation Army said the aircraft carrier, the Shandong, also took part in combat patrols and showed fighters taking off from its deck. Taiwan has been tracking the Shandong since last week in the Pacific Ocean. The ministry said as of mid-morning on Monday that it had spotted 59 military aircraft and 11 ships around Taiwan, and that the Shandong carrier group was drilling in the Western Pacific. Washington had repeatedly called for China to exercise restraint following President Tsai's meeting with Kevin McCarthy, the 3rd most senior U.S. government figure.
Our goal is that hypothetical never comes to fruition. And what we know through history, the best way to do that is supply the weapons that allow people to deter war. Supply the weapons that people could defend themselves. It is a critical lesson that we learned through Ukraine.
Meanwhile, Beijing had warned the U.S. and Taiwan of resolute countermeasures if Ms. Tsai met Mr. McCarthy. China announced the drills after top foreign leaders it was hosting, including French President Emmanuel Macron and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen.
China firmly opposes the U.S.'s arrangement for Tsai Ing-wen's transit trip to the U.S. and any meeting between her and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, the 3rd highest-ranking official of the U.S. government, because it seriously contravenes the One China principle and provisions in the 3 China-U.S. joint communique and gravely undermines China's sovereignty and territorial integrity. We urge the U.S. to abide by the One China principle and provisions in the 3 China-U.S. joint communique, not to allow Tsai Ing-wen's transit trip to the U.S., not to arrange for any meeting or contact between Tsai and U.S. political figures and officials. The Chinese side will closely monitor the situation as it develops and resolutely defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity.
Temitope Ajijola Oluwaola, Western Spring Television.
In the Middle East, Israel has signed a 1.44 billion shekel deal to sell Spike anti-tank missiles to Greece. The Israeli Defense Ministry announced this morning, with the deal coming on the heels of a defense deal with newly inducted NATO member Finland. The CEO of state-owned defense contractor Rafael, which produces the anti-tank missiles, Yoav Ha'evan, said the Spike missile will strengthen the Greek army's portfolio of operational tools. Last week, Finland agreed to a deal with Israel and Rafael after it became a NATO member on April the 4th, ending nearly 70 years of military non-alignment. Israel had said its deals with both countries will boost ties between them, particularly when it comes to defense collaborations. In the midst of its ongoing political crisis, Kuwait has announced a new government, the oil-rich country's seventh in 3 years. The announcement came yesterday, with the previous government having resigned in January, just 3 months after taking office. The government, in a tweet, said a decree from the emir has been issued to validate the formation of the new government led by Sheikh Ahmad Nawaf Ahmad Al-Sabah. According to the political bureau of the Kuwaiti Progressive Movement, the biggest challenge for the new government is regaining the trust of the people. In other news, Egypt's annual urban consumer inflation rate in March climbed to 32.7% year-on-year, just shy of an all-time record from 31.9% in February. According to data from the country's statistics agency, CAPMAS, released today, month-on-month, urban inflation slowed to 2.7% in March from 6.5% in February and 4.7% in January. Egypt's surging inflation rate follows a series of currency devaluations starting in March 2022, a prolonged shortage of foreign currency, and continuing delays in getting imports into the country. Egypt, which secured a $3 billion financial support package from the International Monetary Fund in December, has devalued its currency by half since March 2022. And talking sports, assistant referee Konstantin Hadzidakis will not be involved in any matches while the Football Association investigates an incident which he appeared to elbow Liverpool defender Andy Robertson. Mr. Hadzidakis made contact with Robertson's chin after the Scotland international approached him at the end of the first half in Sunday's 2-2 Premier League draw with Arsenal. An angry Robertson and several teammates approached referee Paul Tierney, who booked Robertson. Refereeing body PGMOL said it will not be appointing Konstantin Hadzidakis to fixtures in any of the competition during the FA investigation. The Professional Game Match Officials Limited, PGMOL, said it will review the matter in full. Before we end Spring Global, here is a recap of our top stories. Vice President Yemi Osinbajo attended the funeral service of former judge of the International Court of Justice, Hague, Netherlands, Prince Bola Ajibola in Abeokuta, Ogun State. At least 5 people have been killed in a mass shooting in Louisville, Kentucky. At least 4 people have been killed and 6 injured in a bombing targeting a police vehicle in the southwestern Pakistani city of Quetta. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Western Spring Television. You can also watch us live on our YouTube channel at Western Spring Television. I am Tunde Ido. Good evening.